Hello there. Now, do you really believe the blob would ever allow the UK to use cruise liners lying offshore to hold people while their applications to enter the country are being investigated? Now, if you haven't already done so, please do subscribe, click the little bell, select all, and then like and comment below. Oh, and there's also a piece in this video on someone called Jeremy Clarkson. So, the Home Secretary was grilled about the potential use of disused cruise liners by the chair of the House of Lords Justice and Home Affairs Committee, Baroness Hamwi, and Suella Braverman replied in a roundabout way that the option was not off the table. Here's what she said.
I think it would be helpful just to know whether that is on your cruise ships, disused cruise ships are on your list.
For many, many reasons, not just migration related, there are huge pressures on housing supply. So that is why we've had to go to the next option, which is hotels. And I've already spoken about that.
Why not let people work and then they could pay the rent themselves for properties?
I'm sorry, Helena. Yeah.
You then asked about cruise ships.
I'd like the answer to that question at some point.
We want to end the use of hotels as quickly as possible because it's an unacceptable cost to the taxpayer. It's over £5 million a day on hotel use alone. And as you heard from the PM, we will bring forward a range of alternative sites, and they will include disused holiday parks, former student halls are sites. Well, I should say we are looking at those sites. I wouldn't say anything's confirmed yet, but we need to bring forward thousands of places. And when you talk about vessels, I would just say, and all I can say, because we are in discussions with a wide variety of providers, that everything is still on the table and nothing is excluded.
So nothing is excluded. But it sounds to me like the Home Office mandarins have convinced their Home Secretary that the option should come at the very end, after the very, very last resort, as it were, had been exhausted. Except Rwanda, of course. And how about that interjection from the Labour peer Baroness Kennedy, asking why the asylum seekers can't be allowed to work to pay for their accommodation? Number one, if there was available accommodation outside of hotels, I'm sure that the Home Office would already be using it. And how much would these people have to earn to live in a 4-star hotel? And two, once they are employed here, they stay. End of. Be in no doubt about that. Once in work, they could never even be fired, let alone be sent home. And the fact they would also be paying tax, however little the amount, it would be used as one of the main arguments for an open borders policy. Then come the families, which is exactly the type of open borders policy that the Labour Party wants to see pursued. So now we know what to expect when Keir Starmer gets into number 10. Open borders with no restrictions and cheap labour for the employers. Here's what Suella Braverman said about it in the Commons.
Illegal migration. They've opposed the Nationality and Borders Act. They've opposed life sentences against people smugglers. They've opposed the removal of foreign national offenders, including drug dealers and rapists. All they offer is obstruction and criticism and performative politics of opposition and magical thinking. Because what do they actually offer? They say return to the failed Dublin scheme, no matter that it was ineffective, no matter that the EU doesn't want it. They want safe and legal routes as the answer, no matter that this government has done more than any other in recent history, offering sanctuary to over 450,000 people by safe and legal routes, no matter that they can't actually define what routes they would stand up themselves. No matter that our capacity is not unlimited, Mr. Speaker, and that there are over 100 million people displaced globally, would Labour give them all a safe and legal route to the UK? Mr. Speaker, we cannot indulge in fictions. The fundamental reason that Labour can't articulate a plan is that they can't be honest They can't be honest with the British public about what they really want. The Shadow Home Secretary couldn't even decide if she would repeal illegal entry, even though she voted against it. Their solution would be to turn our crisis of illegal migration into a crisis of legal migration. Open borders by the back door. Unlimited safe and legal routes is simply open borders masquerading as humanitarianism. Mr. Speaker, last week, the Prime Minister and I announced our plan to tackle small boats. Today, the courts affirm the legality of a central piece in that plan. And tomorrow, Mr. Speaker, Labour still won't have a plan.
But it matters not what elected politicians say, or what the voters want, or who they choose at the ballot box. No, all that matters today is what the WEF, the UN, the EU and the Westminster bubble wants. Those that believe their intellectual progressive wokeness is far superior to any ideas the rest of us might have. The ones that write the reports and insight papers, as I pointed out in this morning's video. Those that believe the government should do what they who know best tell them to do, so as to save the great unwashed masses from themselves. And now that the SNP has fulfilled one aspect of those woke wishes in Scotland today, the push will inevitably start in Westminster in the new year to replicate it in England and the rest of the UK. The wokerati are continuing their triumph for feelings and control. Just look at the pandemic. Yes, the triumph of feelings and control over science on almost every level. And the move to make 1 + 1 = 2 into an anti-everything phobia started many years ago. Now let's take a look at what Jeremy Clarkson said. Over to you, Richard.
Thank you, Jeff. Poor old Jeremy Clarkson is getting a right ribbing for his controversial comments on Meghan. But just take a look at Twitter, at the bile spewed on there by the left towards anyone who doesn't follow the wokey-cokey liberal left agenda. Tame in comparison, I can tell you. Yet the media couldn't care less. Twitter and social media are toilets and open sewers of debate. And the funny thing about toilets are, we all need them to take a shit in and release that thought turd into the ether. Now, I don't like what Jeremy Clarkson said either, and I think it was crass, but hey-ho, lots of people don't like what I say, and zero fucks are given there. And we need to remember the old sticks and stones adage and stop being a society of perpetually insulted individuals. I mean, people are actually calling Clarkson's remarks racist. No. Misplaced and distasteful at worst, but racist, no. But the left and their Twitter feeds are full of racism. Yes, have a read. And they will use words. Yes, the words. The worrying thing is how sensitive we have become to words. And there are words that you and I cannot say. Let's just think about that for a moment. There are words that some people can say, but others can't, depending on the colour of their skin. And that goes for all races. And that is racist. I don't care how derogatory the context of words have been historically, we are supposed to be over that. And believe me, I don't need a lecture on micro instances of prejudice and racism. I know all about them. Oh, believe me, I do. Much of my growing up was done in the South Wales valleys, a small village north of Merthyr Tydfil to be precise. And in that time I watched a society change as racial integration settled and incomers from lands yonder became parts of communities. And it worked. But that was not mass immigration. Anyway, back to my old town. There was no us and them because everyone slotted into place, because everyone had to fit in. And even though there were no segregated communities, there were individual communities, and they then merged into the town, and nobody told us how to do it. It just happened. racism in its most overt and truest sense was on its way out. Fast forward to today, and racism is flourishing. And that, in my opinion, is down to the left, and how they try to make us conscious of the divisions between races and nurture the us and them biases of old. I don't see colour or race. Okay, I'm not blind, so I obviously see certain physical differences. So I don't need to make an issue of it, yet the liberal left does. And that makes me wonder who the real racists are. I have to say, with the liberal left stirring the issues of race, maybe it's time we held a mirror up to them, because true racism is a terrible thing. And it was under one political ideology that its most hideous expression manifested. And that ideology was National Socialism. And I find it no coincidence that anti-Semitism, like in the 1930s and 40s, is rife amongst the far left. Anyway, back over to you, Jeff.
Thank you, Richard. And finally, when subscribing, please don't forget to press that little bell and also select the all option, or you won't get any notifications when I publish a new video. And thank you all so much for taking the time to watch the show.